Nora was lying on the bed with a glass of wine. The harmless invitation for a cup of coffee was turning into something more. She just wanted to tease the black guy, but he couldn't stand it. He came up, grabbed Nora by the neck, and Nora pulled her swim cap off, running her fingers through her short, silver-streaked hair. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the community pool, casting patterns on the water. She felt the familiar ache in her muscles, proof that her workout had been just hard enough. At 67, she wasn't about to slow down. As she wrapped herself in a thick towel, she noticed him at the far end of the pool. Tall, muscular, with smooth, deep brown skin and a confident stride. He pulled himself out of the water with ease, droplets streaming down his toned body. Nora couldn't help but stare, just for a moment longer than polite. He caught her gaze and smiled, a quick, dazzling smile that made her heart race. "Morning," he greeted, his voice low and warm. She cleared her throat, trying to sound casual. "Good morning. You're new here?" He nodded, grabbing his towel from the bench. "Just moved to the neighborhood. Thought I'd check out the pool. I'm Jamal." "Nora," she replied, offering her hand. His grip was firm, his palm rough against hers. He looked her over, not in a judging way, but with genuine curiosity. "You train regularly?" "Every day," she admitted, a little proud. "Keeps me feeling alive." He smiled again, and it lit up his whole face. "It shows. You move like someone who knows her way around the water." They talked for a few minutes about swimming, the best ways to build endurance, and how the mornings were always the best time to train. He was younger, maybe mid-30s, but there was a maturity in how he spoke that intrigued her. Nora found herself laughing more than she had in ages. When she finally pulled herself away, promising to see him around, she couldn't shake the giddy feeling that settled in her stomach. Back at home, she was still thinking about him, his easy smile, and the way his shoulders looked when he climbed out of the pool. Her husband, Ray, was in the kitchen making coffee, oblivious to the way Nora's thoughts raced. She kissed him on the cheek, forcing herself to focus on the familiar, comfortable routine. But that night, as she lay in bed beside Ray, she couldn't help but picture Jamal's hands cutting through the water, his powerful strokes, his easy confidence. The next few mornings they kept crossing paths. Sometimes he would race her for fun, and she would push herself harder than usual, just to keep up. They would sit by the edge afterward, catching their breath, talking about life. Jamal told her about his years of competitive swimming, about how moving to a quieter place was his way of starting fresh. Nora listened intently, fascinated not just by his story, but by the way he looked at her, like she was interesting, like he wasn't just being polite. One morning, after an especially tough set of laps, Jamal sat close enough that their knees almost touched. She could feel the heat radiating off his skin, the scent of chlorine mingling with something distinctly him. "Have dinner with me," he said suddenly, his voice almost a whisper. Nora hesitated, her heart pounding. "I'm married." He didn't flinch, and "I know, I like being around you. I don't want to complicate things, I just want more time with you." She swallowed, suddenly feeling reckless. Maybe you could come by sometime, just to talk." He didn't push, just nodded with a soft smile. "Whenever you want." That evening, when Ray mentioned a business trip coming up, Nora's pulse quickened. The idea took root before she could even consider the consequences. By the time Ray left for his 3-day trip, the decision had already been made. The next morning at the pool, she slipped her number into Jamal's hand before she left, her fingers brushing his. He looked at her with a mixture of surprise and something deeper, something that made her knees weak. That night, as dusk settled over the house, her phone buzzed. Jamal, is tonight good? She stared at the message, her hands trembling, and typed back. Nora, yes, come after 8. When the knock finally came, her heart was racing. She smoothed her dress, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Jamal stood there, dressed casually but still exuding that effortless confidence. He looked at her like he'd been waiting for this moment as long as she had. She stepped aside to let him in, and the house felt different with him there. Fuller, more alive. They sat in the living room, talking at first, his hand brushing hers as they laughed about their morning races. When he leaned in to kiss her, it was gentle at first, almost hesitant. But Nora didn't hesitate. She pulled him closer, feeling his warmth, his strength. His hands slid around her waist, drawing her in. The kiss deepened, slow and searching, and suddenly, the weight of years and routines melted away. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers, and he whispered, "Are you sure?" Nora's voice was steady. "Yes." And when his lips found hers again, it was with a new urgency, a hunger that matched her own. Jamal's hands moved with purpose, his touch firm but gentle. Nora felt a rush of excitement, something she hadn't felt in years. His lips traced her jawline, and she couldn't help the soft gasp that escaped her. It wasn't just the thrill of being desired. It was the way he looked at her, as if she were the only woman in the world. He pulled back just enough to meet her gaze, his dark eyes searching hers. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. She smiled, brushing her fingers through his short, damp curls. "You make me feel that way." They moved to the couch and Jamal guided her down gently, as if afraid she might change her mind. But Nora was certain. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer, their kisses growing more urgent. For a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. It was just his hands on her back, his lips on her neck, and the pulse of excitement that thrummed through her veins. Jamal kissed her like he'd been holding back for weeks, like every touch was something he'd thought about long before tonight. Nora didn't want to think about consequences, about the life she had carefully built. In this moment, she allowed herself to be someone else, someone free, someone fearless. He pulled back, his thumb tracing her cheek. "If you want me to stop, just say it." Nora shook her head, her fingers curling around his shirt. "Don't stop. Not now." With that, he lifted her effortlessly, carrying her towards the bedroom. She couldn't help but laugh softly, the sound muffled against his shoulder. Once inside, he set her down gently, his hands never leaving her waist. They stood there, just breathing, his forehead pressed to hers. The anticipation made her dizzy. Jamal's hands slowly traced the line of her dress, his touch feather-light, but intentional. "You sure?" he asked again, his voice softer this time. She answered by pulling him closer, kissing him with a passion that left no room for doubt. His hands found her back, pulling her tighter against him, and she felt the way his heartbeat matched hers, rapid, uncontrolled. As they moved to the bed, she couldn't help but notice how careful he was with her, how he took his time as if savoring every second. It was unexpected, tender, a side of him she hadn't seen at the pool. Nora traced the lines of his shoulders, feeling the strength beneath his skin. When his hands moved along her sides, her breath hitched, and he froze, concern flickering in his eyes. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, brushing his lips with hers. "Better than okay." The way he smiled made her heart twist, like he couldn't quite believe this was happening. They kissed slowly at first, then with more intensity, as if both of them were trying to hold on to the moment. Later, as they lay tangled in each other's arms, the room filled with the scent of cedar and fresh linen, Jamal traced lazy circles on her shoulder. Nora couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt, but it was drowned out by the overwhelming sense of being alive. "You're different than I thought," Jamal murmured, his fingers brushing her hair back. Nora smiled, resting her head against his chest. "Different how?" He thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I've met a lot of people who just go through the motions. You don't. You're real." His honesty took her by surprise, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. "Maybe it's because I've spent so long playing it safe, doing what's expected." He kissed her forehead. "You deserve more than just being safe." Nora closed her eyes, letting the quiet settle around them. She wasn't used to being seen like this, to having someone see past the surface, past her age, past the life she had constructed. It terrified her, but it also thrilled her in a way she couldn't explain. As they lay there, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Jamal tensed slightly, and she reached over, glancing at the screen. It was a message from Ray. "Ray, flight got canceled. Heading back tonight. Love you." Her heart raced and she sat up, trying to keep her breathing steady. Jamal noticed her sudden shift and sat up as well. "Everything okay?" he asked. She nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just... my husband's coming back earlier than expected." Jamal's face softened and he didn't move to get dressed right away. Instead, he reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Do you regret this?" Nora looked at him, feeling a mix of guilt and longing. "No. I just didn't think it would feel like... this." He nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. "I should go," he said gently, pulling his shirt back on. Nora bit her lip, fighting the urge to ask him to stay. She knew it wasn't right. As he finished dressing, he leaned down and kissed her one last time, slow and lingering. "Take care of yourself," he whispered. She walked him to the door, her heart heavy as he looked back one more time before stepping into the night. When the door clicked shut, Nora leaned against it, trying to process everything that had just happened. She knew the reality would catch up with her soon. But for now, all she could think about was the way Jamal made her feel. Alive, desired, reckless. She didn't know what would happen next, but she couldn't deny that something had shifted, something deep and unspoken. And as the night stretched on, she found herself wondering if that feeling was worth the risk. The house felt unbearably quiet after Jamal left. Nora moved around the room, picking up the scattered clothes, straightening the blankets, trying to pretend nothing had changed. But it had. The way her heart still pounded, the way her lips tingled from his kisses. It was undeniable. She forced herself to focus, throwing the windows open to let in the cool night air. Ray would be back soon, and she needed to pull herself together. She washed her face, took a deep breath, and let the guilt settle, heavy and relentless. Just as she was folding the last throw blanket, her phone buzzed again. "Jamal. Made it home. Thinking of you." Her heart ached at the simple message. She typed back quickly before she could change her mind. "Nora, you shouldn't." The response was immediate. "Jamal. Can't help it." Nora put the phone down, her hands trembling. She hadn't felt this kind of conflict in decades, torn between what she knew was right and the undeniable pull that drew her to him. As the clock inched closer to midnight, she heard Ray's car in the driveway. She fixed a smile on her face, ready to pretend everything was normal. When he walked in, Ray looked exhausted, dragging his suitcase behind him. He gave her a quick kiss on the cheek, barely noticing her lingering stiffness. "Flight from hell," he grumbled, heading straight to the kitchen. Plane broke down. Had to wait for another. Nora followed, busying herself with making him a quick snack. Glad you made it back safe, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Ray settled at the kitchen table, rubbing his temples. Couldn't stop thinking about you while I was stuck in that airport. Sometimes I wonder if we should take a trip ourselves. Get away from all this for a while. Nora froze, a wave of guilt crashing over her. We could plan something, she offered, her voice barely above a whisper. Ray smiled, taking a sip of the tea she set in front of him. Yeah, just you and me, like the old days. She forced herself to smile back, but her mind was already wandering to the way Jamal had looked at her, the way his touch had made her feel. The next few days passed in a haze. Nora went to the pool as usual, but Jamal wasn't there. She tried to focus on her laps, the rhythmic motion of her strokes, but her mind kept drifting back to that night. As the week dragged on, she wondered if he was avoiding her, giving her space to decide. One morning, just as she was finishing her routine, she saw him, standing by the poolside, watching her with that familiar, warm smile. Her heart leapt, and she couldn't stop the grin from spreading across her face. He walked over, hands casually resting in his pockets. Missed seeing you around, he said, voice low. She looked down, trying to mask the thrill in her chest. I've been busy. He nodded, but didn't move away. I get it. Didn't mean to complicate things. Nora glanced up, her resolve crumbling. You didn't. I didn't expect to feel this way. He stepped closer, careful not to draw attention from the other swimmers. What way? She swallowed hard, looking into his eyes. Like I'm alive again. A slow, understanding smile tugged at his lips. I feel it too. Before she could respond, Ray's voice called from the entrance. Nora, you ready to head out? She flinched, quickly stepping back from Jamal. Ray approached, oblivious to the tension, giving Jamal a polite nod. You're the new guy, right? Jamal? Jamal nodded, his composure flawless. Yes, sir. Just finishing up. Ray grinned, clapping him on the shoulder. Nora's always talking about how fast you swim. Maybe you can give her a few pointers. Jamal glanced at Nora, his eyes betraying nothing. She's a natural. Doesn't need tips from me. As they walked to the car, Ray kept talking, oblivious to Nora's tight grip on the steering wheel. Her mind raced, trying to process the casual encounter that had left her breathless. That night, as Ray slept soundly beside her, she slipped out of bed and stood by the window, staring at the moonlit garden. Her phone was on the nightstand, and before she could overthink it, she picked it up. Nora, I can't stop thinking about you. Jamal's reply came instantly. Jamal, me too. Let me see you again. Her fingers hovered over the keys, heart pounding. She knew it wasn't just about the physical connection. It was the way he listened, the way he saw her. Not just as an older woman, but as someone vibrant, capable of passion. Nora. Tomorrow, same time. She put the phone down, guilt tugging at her, but excitement blazing through her veins. As she crawled back into bed, Ray stirred, mumbling something incoherent. Nora froze, but he just turned over, lost in sleep. Nora lay awake, torn between loyalty and longing. She knew what she was risking, knew the consequences if Ray ever found out. But the memory of Jamal's hands on her skin was too powerful to ignore. As dawn crept through the curtains, Nora knew one thing for sure. She couldn't walk away. Not yet. Not when it felt like she was just beginning to truly live. The next day, Nora was restless, her mind spinning as she went through her usual morning routine. Ray had left early to meet some friends, giving her a few precious hours alone. She couldn't deny it anymore. Jamal had become more than just a distraction. He was a craving, something she couldn't easily shake. By the time she arrived at the pool, her hands were trembling. Jamal was already there, finishing his laps. As he pulled himself out of the water, his eyes met hers, and that familiar warm smile crossed his face. She couldn't help it. She smiled back. They exchanged quick nods, pretending for the sake of the others that this was just another casual morning. But as soon as the pool cleared out, Jamal approached her, dripping wet, looking like he belonged on a magazine cover. "You sure about this?" he whispered, his voice low. Nora didn't hesitate. "Yes, come with me." They didn't speak on the drive back to her house. The air was thick with tension, each stolen glance setting her pulse racing. Once inside, she barely had the door closed before his hands were on her, pulling her in, kissing her like he'd been waiting for this all his life. They moved to the living room, and she pushed him onto the couch, straddling him, their breaths mingling as their lips met again and again. His hands traced her back, pulling her closer, and Nora felt the weight of every missed opportunity, every year of routine and predictability, melting away. When they finally slowed down, he cupped her face, his eyes intense. "You make me crazy," he admitted, his forehead resting against hers. Nora couldn't help but laugh, breathless. "You make me feel reckless." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring the connection. Just as they began to lose themselves again, a loud knock at the door made them both freeze. Panic flashed across Nora's face. She scrambled off Jamal, fixing her hair and straightening her clothes. "Stay here," she whispered. Peeking through the window, her heart sank. Ray stood on the porch, looking impatient. She took a deep breath and opened the door just enough to see him. "Hey," Ray greeted, leaning in for a quick kiss. "Forgot my wallet. I think I left it on the kitchen counter." Nora forced a smile, her heart pounding. "Of course. Come on in." As Ray moved past her, she shot a glance at the living room. Jamal had disappeared, probably slipped out the back door. Relief flooded her, but her pulse didn't slow down. Ray found his wallet right where he'd left it, giving her a quick peck on the cheek. "You okay? You seem flustered." Nora laughed it off. "Just rushing around today. You know how I get." He nodded, not pressing, and gave her a reassuring squeeze. "Take it easy, okay? I'll be back later." As soon as he was gone, Nora bolted to the backyard, spotting Jamal leaning against the fence, his face tense. She let out a shaky breath. That was too close. Jamal gave a half smile, rubbing the back of his neck. "I didn't want to cause trouble. Didn't know where else to go." She stepped closer, putting a hand on his chest. "You didn't? I just wasn't expecting him back so soon." He looked at her, searching her face. "Are we making a mistake?" Nora didn't answer right away. Instead, she cupped his face and kissed him, soft and slow. When she pulled back, her voice was steady. "Maybe, but I can't stop. I don't want to stop." Jamal kissed her again, his hands finding her waist. They stood there, hidden from the world, wrapped up in the strange, complicated comfort of each other. Over the next few weeks, they found ways to meet, at the pool, during Ray's long afternoons out, even sneaking glances at the grocery store when they ran into each other by chance. It was reckless, and every encounter left Nora feeling both exhilarated and guilty. One evening, as they sat on the edge of the pool after hours, Jamal broke the silence. "I can't keep doing this, sneaking around. I want you, but not like this." Nora looked down at the water, her heart heavy. "I know. I don't know how to choose." He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "You deserve to be happy, whatever that means. but I can't be just a secret anymore." Tears stung her eyes and she squeezed his hand. "I don't want to lose you." Jamal kissed her forehead, his touch gentle. "I'll be here, but you need to figure out what you want before we both get hurt." That night, as she lay in bed beside Ray, sleep didn't come. Jamal's words echoed in her mind, and the truth finally settled in. She couldn't have both. She had to decide whether to hold on to the safety of her marriage or to risk everything for the passion and connection she'd found with Jamal. The next morning, Nora sat on the porch, watching the sunrise. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jamal. "Jamal, I miss you." She typed back, heart pounding. "Nora, meet me at the pool. We need to talk." As the sun climbed higher, Nora knew that whatever happened next would change her life. One way or another, she would have to face the truth and choose between comfort and the unexpected love that had shaken her world.